starting off, I got a segment which it's actually really good. It's about something I'm not sure we've ever talked about specifically. It's kind of a lesser known topic. And this comes from a recent article I read about this breast surgery collaborative community, which is this collection of plastic surgeons and patient advocates. And they were talking about breast implant capsules and sort of the management of them. So I know you've talked about the fact that you have implants, so
Yeah.
I hope it's okay if we ask you a question. So
Sure.
well, I just want to make sure that you're still cool with it. So if you were going to go and like have your implants out, like would you know to ask about the capsule, or would that be something that?
No, I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Is that a bad thing? It's a bad thing to have it, right?
No. So okay. So let me get.
Does your body like naturally create it? Or
yes,
something?
that's right. Yeah. So whenever you put implants in somebody, or really when you put anything that's foreign in your body will realize that it's not you, and its response is to wall it off. Okay. And so when the object that's getting walled off is a breast implant, it's called the breast capsule. It basically is just this really thin fibrous layer which surrounds the implant, and it's actually good because it holds it in place. You have to be, one of the reasons you have to wear a sports bra right after surgery when you have implants is to kind of hold things in place so that the implants don't get out of position. Mm-hmm. And so once the layer forms around the implants, then you're all good, like it's not going to go anywhere. And so we want that breast capsule to form, that's good. But there is the question of if you remove your implants, like what to do with the capsule. And there's some varying thoughts on that. I think most good plastic surgeons are in agreement with this. And so I'm not sure we've ever talked about it. And so I just kind of want to go, I guess we haven't, because you've been here almost as long as the show's been going on, and it sounds like that you're not familiar. So I guess the first thing is, okay, so who needs a potential breast capsule, surgery? Well, it'd be people who are taking out their implants, all right? And so I kind of lump those people into three groups. There's the people that just want their implants out because maybe they're, body changed and they're in a different time in their life and they just don't want to be as big as they are anymore. And so they want their implants out. And I see a lot of consults for that. I did a surgery like that this week, actually 2 days ago. I do about 1 to 2 weeks, I'm taking out somebody's implants. And a lot of it's just people who've gotten older, like I said, people's body changed with age and they gain some weight and their breasts get bigger and then they just don't need the implants. So they just simply want their implants out. The next would be the breast implant illness people, which is a pretty small percentage. I think the stated percentage is like 1% or less of people who get implants think they have breast implant illness, so not a huge number there. And then finally would be the breast implant associated cancer people, so that ALCL, it's like the anaplastic large cell lymphoma. Remember, that's only a risk when you have the textured implants, which are really, really, really rare in the United States.
Okay.
So there's three people potentially, or three groups of people that might want or might need something done with the breast capsule. And so I guess let's just kind of go back to this breast surgery collaborative community, the BSCC. So like their statement didn't say a whole lot. I think I have Charles, still up that picture. I think I have a picture of that little article that here you go. If you guys want to look it up, this is just their announcement as it was posted in the American Society of Plastic Surgeons, either website or journal or something. But if you want to look it up, that's what you would Google. And so like they didn't say a whole lot. And I'm always curious what these groups say, because a lot of times these groups say dumb stuff. Like these groups, academics, I mean, there's a reason I'm not in academics. Sometimes they'll say stuff and I'm like, I don't know about that. But I will say that what they went over, I actually was in full agreement with. So the first thing they did is defined the type of capsule removal, okay? Because that's the question I was kind of getting or working towards when I was asking you about, what to do with capsule. Because in general, you want to remove the capsule when you're removing your implants.
Yeah. Do people not?
Well, sometimes not. It just depends on the surgeon. I would say most people do. I mean, most people are in agreement that at least partially removing the capsule is a good idea. And so I'll kind of go through like each individual patient and talk about, like kind of how I feel about them. Because and like I said, me and this group I think are in pretty much agreement. So they define the types of capsule removal, and there's three kind of groups of capsule removal. So there's total capsulectomy, which means you remove the entire capsule.
Right.
So you're shelling the whole thing out of there. And that could be done as an intact capsulectomy where you take it out as one piece, or just a total where you take it all out, but it may not be in one piece. That makes no difference whatsoever.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you take it in one piece or not. I actually do try to take them in one pieces when I can. Sometimes, though, it's hard to do because it's hard to get around behind it to free it up unless you pull the implant out. And a lot of times I try to take the implant out with it. And so sometimes it ends up coming out in more than one piece. But I do try to take it out one if I can. But really not for any reason, but just because. Then there's partial capsulectomy, which means you take out part of the capsule, but you leave some behind. And lastly would be an en-bloc capsulectomy. So an en-bloc capsulectomy means not only do you remove the entire capsule in one piece, but you also remove some normal tissue around it. So you're not just taking the capsule, you're taking some normal tissue.
Okay.
And so one of the things that really the main thing that they were talking about, the breast society, let's see, what was it? Breast Surgery Collaborative Community said is that the en-bloc capsulectomy should only be done if you're doing it for cancer.
Okay.
And I 100% agree with that. And so why would they say something like that? You're just like, okay, well, why was that the one thing they said? Well, because there are like these people out there that call themselves breast implant removal specialists, because they're basically preying on these people who...
Those three types?
Yeah, they're preying on people mostly with the breast implant illness because, you know, like nowadays everybody joins a Facebook group, right? Mm-hmm. And so like there's these Facebook groups that pop up for people that have breast implant illness, and a lot of people will get in their head they need to like have this done a certain way or their symptoms are not going to go away.
Right.
So there's these plastic surgeons that actually prey on these people, and like they, you know, they'll kind of tell them what they want to hear, and they'll say things like, oh, well, you know, I'm a specialist in implant removal, which is total BS. That's not a real thing. Mm-hmm. And they'll say you have to have like this total en-bloc capsulectomy to make sure that your symptoms go away. Well, I mean, there's been research on this, you know, on people that have breast implant illness, and there's no difference in outcome if you take the capsule or leave it. Like you can completely leave it in there, and their symptoms do not change one bit. Okay. And so, you know, and so, okay, well, why are these implant removal specialists saying that you need a total capsulectomy? Because it drives up the cost. Mm-hmm. You know, it makes it more expensive. And so, you know, once again, people are doing stuff for money.
I could see how it's like a big selling point. It's like,
yeah, right.
Whatever tissues has touched
exactly.
The implant,
yeah. See, you can
I'm going to take it all out.
Yeah, you can see how people would like buy into that, and then they'll say things like, "Well, if you go to a surgeon, and they say they're not going to do this, then you know they don't know what they're doing."
Unnecessary.
Yeah, right. It's totally unnecessary. I mean, and not only that, it's risky. I mean, when you start removing not just the capsule but the tissue around it, you're really opening yourself up to some big problems. Things like bleeding, breast deformity, you know, draining fluid forever. You know, there's a lot of potential problems that can arise from doing an en-bloc capsulectomy.
Yeah.
And so, that was kind of the main reason, I think, is they've realized that there's people preying on these people who are vulnerable, right? Because they feel like that they have this problem, and you know they're looking for someone to, you know, say, okay, yes, you have a problem, and you know this is how you're going to fix it. And I do breast implant illness implant removals. I mean, I'm very like scientific about it. Like I will go over like all the current research and say, this is what the research says about if you have your implants out, you know, are you going to feel better? And this is what the research says about the capsules and blah, blah, blah. And I think most people are thankful for that. I've had actually one or two come in, and after I like talked to them and went over all the research with them, like a couple of them decided not to take out their implants.
Yeah.
And I think that they were, you know, happy with that decision. Versus if you go to someone who's an implant removal specialist, I promise you're not leaving there until your implants are out.
Right.
Because they're going to tell you, you know, they're going to feed into fears and whatnot. So I just want to kind of go over those three basic groups and talk about what I think about the capsules. Because I've been doing this forever now, and you know, I feel like I kind of got it down. And really, like I'm in agreement with like most of the people who are really, you know, good breast surgeons. So for your basic implant removal, like so say you decided one day, hey, look, I don't want my implants anymore. You know, I want to go smaller because I'm going to be like an ultra marathon runner or whatever. Of course, we'd take out the implant, and then I would take out your capsule in its entirety just by itself without taking any tissue. And the only reason I would leave any behind, and this is actually happens pretty commonly, is sometimes if the capsules are really good, they can be really thin and they're not like a really distinct layer. And if you try to shave that off muscle, like it ends up being a freaking mess.
Okay.
And so there are times whenever, like, you know, I get like most of the capsule out, but there's parts stuck to the muscle, and I'm like, I'm just gonna leave it because it's so thin, it's not bothering anything. Usually I'll score it a little bit so that like it wants to react and heal down, and I just leave it. And there's no problem with doing that.
What do you do with capsules whenever people just get like them redone? Do you keep it, or do you?
Yeah, you just keep it. Yeah.
And you stick the implant into the capsule, a new one?
The new implant?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
Dang,
it's like a
didn't
home
know
for it,
that.
right? It's like if you were gonna, it's like if you,
Interesting.
it's
so
like
if I got mine redone,
they would
you
just they would leave your
slice
capsule.
it open.
Yeah, they would open up
stick
the
a new
capsule,
one in.
pull out your implant, and then if you were doing any alteration, you potentially would make cuts on the inside to open up the pocket in one direction or the other. Or if you're going bigger, then you'd open up in a few areas to make it expand.
It's like a little implant purse.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the way I would think of it is like if you were going to, you know, if you're going to rebuild your house, you probably would use the slab.
Yeah.
Most of the time, you'd be like, oh, the slab's good. I just want to rebuild the house. So you'd knock the house down and you'd rebuild the house on the same slab, unless you were, you know, totally changing the design or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's no reason to like. It's really to your disadvantage to mess with it. I mean, you know, I say this all the time that simple plans are good plans. And why in the world would you go and pull out a totally, you know, perfectly normal capsule? Now, if you have somebody that has like really old silicone implants that are ruptured, and you go and you take that implant out, that capsule is going to be garbage. Like it's going to be calcified, it's going to be hard, and in that instance, you're pulling it out entirely. You're taking the whole thing out and just letting it reform. But if I go in there and somebody's capsule is good, yeah, I ain't going to mess with it. You know, why would you? There's no point. If they had no problem, like why would you, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So anyway, for your basic implant removal, I mostly do total capsulectomies. I'll occasionally do like a subtotal where I leave just a small part of it because I think it's too much risk to take it out.
But is that muscle part, is that usually on people with like a lot of chest muscle, or is that just like
it just can be
one
anyone.
in a few? Okay.
You know, sometimes the capsule you can just like really peel it off the muscle very easily, and sometimes it's pretty stuck. And if it's stuck, then I'm not going to shave into someone's muscle to get a capsule out. There's no point. There's no benefit. So it's like, why do it? Okay, for breast implant illness people, I pretty much do the same thing as I do for regular implants removal. I try to take out the entire capsule. And so I guess the question someone might ask is, why do you take it out at all? Well, I just feel like that things heal better if there's a fresh layer to heal to. The capsule is kind of fibrous, right? And so
what happens when you leave a capsule in though?
Like most of the time, if you just open someone up and you just literally took out their implant and closed them immediately, the risk would be is those layers wouldn't heal together. And you might get fluid buildup in there, or there might just be this permanent space in there. Typically, any tissue that sticks together will eventually heal to itself, but I feel like that you should pull the caps out to get a nice fresh layer to heal to yourself, because that'll heal very quickly, and there's not any risk of like fluid collecting or anything like that.
Sounds like it shouldn't be in there.
I've seen people, like, I remember when I was in training, and there were plenty of surgeons that when they did implant removals, they would just pull the implant out and that would be it. They wouldn't do anything with the capsule. And really, like, I don't think that there's a lot of data to show that there's like this, you know, really bad complication if you don't pull it out. I just tend to pull it out because I want to make things anatomic if I can.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave something in there that wasn't there initially.
Yeah.
And then lastly, for the implant-associated cancer, the ALCL, and I actually have treated one of those patients, which is pretty rare because, you know, there's not that many of those cancers in the United States. I think it's like a few hundred, like it's not a big number, which I actually diagnosed one like many years ago, like when it was kind of like an unknown thing. So you do want to remove the capsule and some healthy layer. It's like any cancer operation. You don't just take the cancer out, you take some normal tissue with it. So that'd be the only time like an Bldg capsulectomy is really kind of needed. So, but yeah, so that's kind of the info on breast capsules. You know, I think that there are surgeons out there that are taking advantage of people that get into these groups and feel like they have to have like a certain type of capsule removal. Like all the data shows that's not true.
Yeah.
You know, I do think it is a good idea to remove the capsules, but you know, I think it should be done in a smart way and not take
extra
tissue unless it's for cancer, which is very, very, very rare that happens. And finally, I think that you just have to be aware of these like gimmicky marketing people. Like people that say I'm an implant removal specialist. That's not a thing.
Yeah.
If people are gonna like be shady like that, then I'm not really sure I would trust them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's better just go somebody who does lots of breast surgery, and they'll be more honest with you, I think. So, anyway, capsules. So now you know, right?
Yeah, I know. I didn't know a lot about it.
I mean, if you were going in as a patient and you're having your implants removed, I think it's definitely important that you ask your surgeon, what is your plan with the capsule, just so you know. Because if they're going to do something crazy like remove the whole thing, they may try to charge you for that. I typically, I really don't charge for people for capsule removals unless they're bad. Because it can take an hour to remove a bad one. If it's like really scarred in, I mean, it can add like an hour of surgery time. So
Yikes.
that does, but for the most part, I don't generally charge people to remove them. Yeah, I just do implant removal. It's like one fee.
Nice.
Yeah. So, all right, capsule removal. Now you know.
Capsules.
All right, capsules. Good.